Mr. Lewis here. This is section 1.1, integers and absolute values. If at any point in time you need to stop the video, please do. Pause it, rewind it, whatever you need to do to make sure that you're following along with this lesson and doing your guided notes. So let's go ahead and just jump into this thing. As you can already tell, we're going to be talking about integers. And an integer is simply this. It is a set of numbers containing 0 natural numbers and their opposites. So I just threw a bunch of words at you. So let's talk about it. It is a set of numbers containing zeros. So an example of an integer is the number 0. This is an integer. And then it says natural numbers. Well, try to recall back from time, you've been doing natural numbers probably since kindergarten, if not before. Natural numbers are how we count. They are the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So these are natural numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah, 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 blah. All of those are natural because this is how we normally count. And then it says, and their opposites. Well, what's the opposite? We'll do a little bit more about this, but simply put, the opposite of 1 is -1. The opposite of 2 is -2. The opposite of 3 is -3. The opposite of 4 is -4. And the opposite of 5 is -5. All of these are integers. So 102 is an integer, and a -102 is also an integer. So what are some non-examples? Well, basically anything that doesn't look like this. If I give you a fraction, not an integer. If I give you a decimal, not an integer. If I give you something like this, not an integer, okay? These are non-examples, all right? So let's go ahead to the next definition. Absolute value. It is simply the distance a number is from 0. And we write the absolute value of a number such as A, and it's written as the absolute value of A. Notice how this A looks like it's kind of behind bars. This means the absolute value of A. So what is this telling me to find out? So let's kind of go down and look at our examples. The way I read this is, since I have a -2 and it's behind bars, I read this as the absolute value of -2. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at a number line. I have the number -2, so I'm going to put a little dot right there. And I am trying to find the distance a number is from 0. So I'm trying to find out how far is -2 away from 0. So let's kind of count. Well, I can jump by 1 and I jump by 2. So how far is it away? Well, it took me 1, 2 jumps. That's really all I'm doing. I'm asking how many jumps is it away from 0. In this case, -2 is 1, 2 away. All right, let's look at the number 4. The number 4 on my number line would be here. And I'm trying to find the absolute value of 4. That's what my gel bars are telling me. So I plot 4 and I'm looking for how many jumps is it away. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So the absolute value of 4 happens to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And now let's look at the absolute value of -9. So I'm going to erase this so we can use our little number line again. I played a point over at -9. And let's count how far away it is from 0. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It is 9 jumps away. So the absolute value of -9 is 9. Well, you might be seeing a pattern here. Basically, if you look at it, what do you see? The absolute value of any number is basically the whole number. All right, so if I have a -2, the absolute value of -2 is just the 2. It's not meaning that I'm just getting rid of the negative. It's asking how many jumps to 0 is it, and it's only 2 jumps. In this case, it's 4 jumps. In this case, it's 9 jumps. So if I give you one like this, negative 18, what would it be? The absolute value of negative 18 would be, according to our pattern that we see, 18 jumps, or just 18. So let's go to the back part of this page. It's asking for the absolute value of the integer. All right, so we can do this pretty quickly. We already know that when we want to find the absolute value, we're asking how many jumps away from 0 is it? Well, negative 1 is simply 1 jump away. Negative 14 would be 14 jumps away if we use the number line. So if we did a number line, we did 0 and we went to negative 14, which would be here. It would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so I messed that up a little bit, but that's okay. It's literally 14 jumps to get to 0. Well, if you're at 0 and you want to know how far it takes you to get to 0, well, the absolute value is 0. And it's the same thing here. You're at 6, you need to know the absolute value of it. Well, it's 6 because it takes 6 jumps to get back to 0. Now, let's look at these, and I'm going to pause here in just a second. It says, complete the statement, use less than, greater than, or equal to. So we have 6 is we don't know, the absolute value of negative 2. Our question is, which one is bigger? Well, we know the number 6 here, and now we have to look at this number, and we're trying to figure out the absolute value of negative 2. Well, I'm going to rewrite this. 6 blank, and what is the absolute value of negative 2? Well, we did that earlier. We know that the absolute value of negative 2 is just 2 because it takes 2 jumps to get from negative 2 back to 0. So the absolute value of negative 2 is just 2. Now, which one of these is bigger? Well, the 6 is. All right, so which one of these signs do we use? Well, we can rule this one out pretty easy. 6 does not equal 2, so that one we can rule out. This one says less than. So if you see this sign, I'm going to write a little note to the side, okay? If you see this sign, it means less than, okay? And if you see this sign, it means more than. And this should be something you already know. However, how can we remember this? This was something my teacher used to tell me. It was called alligator mouths. So look at this. It kind of looks like an alligator's mouth, and we can draw some teeth. Okay, got some teeth on that one, and then we can draw some teeth on that one. Well, I don't know about you, but if I'm an alligator and I'm hungry, I'm going to eat the biggest thing I see. So out of these numbers, which one's bigger? It's the 6. So I'm going to draw my alligator mouth like this, and I'm going to eat that number 6 because I'm hungry. All right, so 6 is greater than 2. So that also means we can draw the same thing up here. 6 is greater than the absolute value of negative 2. So let's look at the next one. I have negative 7, and we're trying to figure out if it's less than, equal to, or greater than negative 8. Not just negative 8, but the absolute value of negative 8. So we have negative 7. We don't know what that is yet. And the absolute value of negative 8 happens to be 8. So which number's bigger? Well, this is a negative number. And if we look at our number line, just to kind of show it, we have a positive 8 here and a negative 7. Well, remember back from what you've probably been taught before, negative 7 is less than 0, but 8 is bigger than 0. So the biggest number out of these two happens to be 8. So let's draw our alligator mouth, because that alligator is hungry, so he's going to eat the number 8. So negative 7 is less than the absolute value of 8. Why don't you pause the video and try these next two on your own? What you should have gotten is that the absolute value of negative 9 is greater than 5. Here's the reason why. The absolute value of negative 9 is 9. And we have 5, and we know that the alligator will always eat the bigger number. So so 9 will be eaten in this case. So the negative 9, the absolute value of negative 9 is greater than 5. In this one, the absolute value of negative 2 is equal to 2. And we know that because the absolute value of negative 2 is 2, and that's 2, and they are equal. All right. So for number 9, it asks us to order the values from least to greatest. All right, so I need to look at each one of these and actually find what their true value is. And so this one's pretty easy. 4 happens to be 4. The absolute value of 7, well, I'm going to write it to the side just so I don't forget it, is 7. All right, because we know it takes 7 jumps to get from 0 to 7. Therefore, the absolute value is 7. All right, negative 1, we don't have to do anything with. The absolute value of negative 3 happens to be 3, so we know that number. And then we have negative 4, and we don't have to do anything with it. So our job is to take all these and put them in the proper order. So what is the smallest value up here? Well, in this case, the smallest value is negative 4, because negative 4 is the smallest number and it's the farthest number away from 0. So we'll write that down, so negative 4. All right, what's the next smallest value? Well, in this case, we would have negative 1. What's the next one after that? This would be the absolute value of negative 3. Now, you would be asking, well, Mr. Lewis, negative 3 falls between negative 4 and negative 1. And you're right. Oh, we got somebody mowing in the background. Hang on, let's let the noise go by. Bye-bye. All right, so you're absolutely right. So at this point in time, you're asking me, but Mr. Lewis, negative 3 is between negative 1 and negative 4. And you're right. However, you forget what this is saying. It's not negative 3, but the absolute value of negative 3. That's why this comes next. This is negative 4, this is negative 1, but this number's true value is positive 3. The next number on our list would be positive 4, and then the last number would be the absolute value of 7, because its true value is 7. So this is a little bit different because of these absolute values. Don't let that trip you up. It's telling you that this value is not negative 3, but its true value, its absolute value, is positive 3. Why don't you try 10 and 11 on your own? What you should have got was negative 3, negative 1, the absolute value of 2, the absolute value of negative 5, and 6. Now, look, you're right. This number is negative 5, and negative 5 is indeed smaller than negative 3, but look at it again. In case you put this on this side, this is not saying negative 5. It's saying the absolute value of negative 5. So its true value happens to be positive 5. So just don't, if you made that mistake and had this over on this side, it's because this is an absolute value. So let's look at the next one. Negative 9, negative 2, 0, the absolute value of negative 7, and then the absolute value of negative 8. All right, so let's look at 12. I'm going to read it with you, and then I want you to pause the video and give it some thought and see if you can figure it out. It says, you download 12 new songs to your MP3 player. I didn't know those things really existed anymore. I guess it still does. I'm so used to using my iPads and iPhones and everything. You download 12 new songs to your MP3 player. We probably should say iPhone now, but anyway, this is an old piece of paper, so let's just roll with it. Then you delete 5 old songs. Write each amount as an integer. All right, so I want you to think this one through. It says you download 12 new songs. It means that you got 12 new songs. And then it says you deleted 5 old songs. So you need to figure out, is this a positive 12 or a negative 12? Because it's asking you to write it as an integer. And you need to figure out if this is a positive 5 or a negative 5 because you're being asked to do it as an integer. What you should have got was that your 12 songs would be positive, which we just can denote by just writing the number 12 down. It is a positive number because you received it. You gained 12 songs. However, when you got rid of something, you lost it. And when you lose something, it's negative. So it would be negative 5. All right, so this is actually something I am going to challenge you with. Number 13. Okay, this is a challenge. It says the mantle layer of Earth begins around about 70 kilometers underneath the surface. The layer called the outer core begins about 2,970 kilometers underneath the surface. Write an integer for the position of each layer relative to the surface. We have the mantle layer and the outer core. Which integer in part A is greater? So which one of these two integers are bigger or greater? And then it says which integer in part A has the greater absolute value, and how does this relate to the layer that has the greatest distance from the surface? So here's the thing. I'm not going to give you the answer to this in this video. This is going to be a part of this video assignment. I want you to try to figure this out on your own and working with other people. So this question I'm going to leave for you. Don't forget you do have some other assignments that are in Schoology that are related to this first section. And as always, and I will tell you this is the first part of the school year and this very, very, very first video, and you're going to hear it in every video from here on out until the end of the school year. Always, always ask for help. Ask for me, ask for somebody. Don't just sit there and look confused. Please, I beg you, ask for help. You will always, always receive it from me if it's within my power. All right, so try number 13 out. Don't forget your other assignment that are coming up, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.